Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Push to Pass F1 podcast. Now, if you're wondering why this episode is a little bit later, it's because one, it is finals weeks with uni, so we've been up to our neck in about 1,000 deadlines, but also we have had a few paddock rumours that we've let mature and eventually come out. So, Reef, first of all, how are you doing today, my friend?
I'm not bad, mate. Bit tired after today, but doing good.
Yeah, for people, we are currently filming this at 10 to 7, and we were in university at 9 o'clock this morning.
Yeah,
And I got home an hour ago, and you've just come back from the shop.
I have. I have come back from the shop.
The first bit, well, the only place we can start really is away from the actual Grand Prix weekend of Miami itself. We had some news break today,
We did.
which I think people have been feeling, and we certainly felt has been coming for a long, long time. Jack Doohan has been dropped by Alpine and will be replaced by Franco Colapinto, who is on a 6-race contract.
6 races.
Yeah, I
Alpine,
don't.
Alpine, Alpine. What?
Well, also we should mention in sort of a partnership, Flavio Briatore is now the team principal of Alpine.
He is, and I got told by one of my housemates today that Flavio Briatore is actually Doohan's agent.
Yeah. So have you not seen the Drive to Survive clip from last year?
I think so. I must not.
Flavio Briatore basically came out and said to Jack Doohan, "I own every single millimeter of you. Like I control everything you do."
Yep,
So he's
yep. Get him as team principal. Yeah.
yeah. I think the over. I think a lot of people are sort of feeling and sensing that there was a contrast in who wanted to keep Doohan and who wanted to get Colapinto. I think, judging from how things have gone, it was clear that Flavio wanted Franco in.
Which makes no
And
sense.
no,
Like from an agent perspective. I mean, I don't get it. Clearly, there's a lot. I think turmoil would be the right word. There's a lot of turmoil at Alpine at the minute. I think Oliver Oak's leaving isn't just a coincidence. I think it's probably to do with the decision making that's going on at the moment. I don't know
they're
about you.
they're churning through team principals. They've had, I think it's close to 10 or 11 since 2021.
I did not know it was that many.
They've had like they had Cyril, didn't they?
Mm. Yeah.
That was back with the Heat. That was back when he was Renault and it became. Then they had like Otmar Safnauer, and
Hmm.
then they just kept just going through random ones, and yeah, it's a weird situation at Alpine, but I also don't get the timing of it because Franco has never raced Imola, and we're getting into a section of races which Franco would have only have probably done like 3 in Formula 2.
Yeah, and like while we're on the topic of Franco, I can see it now already that people are going to be disappointed by his performance. I feel like he was so highly spoken of last year because no one expected him to be quick.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And he displayed, like, admittedly he displayed really solid pace, but he was very crash happy. So that would give you the signs that maybe he was on the limit. Like, where's the ceiling? I don't think his ceiling's been established at all. He might get in that Alpine and just be trailing at the back and maybe not even do as good as doing us.
And to be fair, look, doing start to the season, it's not something that would warrant like a comfortable F1 suite, but he also hasn't done like he's not been the worst driver on the grid.
I
He
think
he has
Gabby Bortoletto might take that.
he hasn't been terrible, and like he's clearly felt the pressure, which I can't blame him,
No, not at
considering
all.
his seat was already at risk before the season even started. So you can't really expect him to just go, oh yeah, I'll put that behind me. I'm a rookie, and I'll go and get like Q3 every week. But also, there's no guarantee Franco's going to come into the car now for Imola and be quick at all.
Not at all. I wouldn't be surprised if he's last. Like, if anything, he's higher chance that he is slower than what Doohan would be for the first 2 races. Because at the end of the day, he's still a rookie.
Do we think it's the correct call?
No, I think it's a
Yep.
call. It's a call that made sense for Alpine, considering how much they've paid for him. You know, the quicker they get him in, the quicker he can get to grips with the car. Maybe next season he can hit the ground running and become a Formula One, driver, to so to speak. Because at the moment he's just as much as a rookie as doing is.
This is a they should have sorted this before the season for me.
Definitely, this is just
This
a screaming highlight of how badly they run.
well, we've already had two driver changes, and we're what a quarter of a way through the season.
Yeah, and do you think there'll be any more?
Um, no, unless like no, unless Alpine genuinely lose their mind and get rid of Franco as well.
Yeah, round 13, Paul Aron comes in.
I saw a thing. It was like Franco does 6 rounds, Paul Aaron comes in, Paul Aaron does 6 rounds, and they bring back Alonso.
Honestly,
Flavio runs it back.
it's a nightmare there.
Yeah, they've just. I think they, as like long ago, and it was. I think they were massively like screwed over by the Oscar Piastri stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Well, because now in retrospect, he would have been their future. But saying that, it doesn't look like they're good at nurturing talent. So Piastri could have been half the driver he is now if he'd actually gone to Alpine. You never know.
Their driver management in terms of like their academy and stuff is horrific. How little they promote their drivers,
Yeah, it's
and
true.
you just end up with Gasly or Ocon every week.
Well, think about it from like we will move on from Alpine eventually, but think about it from back in 2021. Oscar Piastri had just won Formula 2. That's three championships on the bounce. What do? They bring in what would he have been, like 39-year-old Fernando Alonso.
Yeah, he's like yeah, and
That's how old he would have been at the time.
and they brought back Fernando Alonso, who had technically retired.
Yeah, over someone like Piastri. Let him sit on the sidelines for a year. Like that's just one of the many blunders that they've made, and I think they'll probably carry on continuing to do so.
So, last little bit on Alpine. How do we think Duan does? Not Duan. Franco does for the rest of the year.
I think it'll be similar to last year. I think he'll show good signs of, there's definitely a natural pace there, and I like him. He's quite fiery. He's a bit like a firecracker on the grid. I think he's definitely a personality if he gets time to stay there. But I wouldn't be surprised if he's very inconsistent. I feel like he'll be like making plays towards like end of Q2, maybe pushing Q3 at one round, and then he'd be like stone dead last at another.
Do you know who he really reminds me of?
Who's that?
Danny Kvyat.
Okay.
You don't know whether he's gonna like light the world on fire with a great result, whether he's gonna absolutely destroy his car, or whether he's just gonna kill someone into turn three.
Yeah, yeah. I like it.
He is like the F1 equivalent of like what a footballer would call it, a chaos baller.
Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah.
think so. But also at the same time, I don't know if this is. Look, he's had like what? How many races has he had? Like 8, if that.
Um. Yeah. No, I think he's either has 8 or 11.
Yeah, so he's not had many. So what we saw last year is just a rookie. He might become a really polished talent, or he might become a torpedo.
I
We
can
don't
see
know
him.
yet.
I can see him being like an established midfield driver.
I'd like to see it. I would.
Like a
Um,
guy.
it's 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 great for like the branding because obviously he's Argentinian. Is he?
Yeah, he's
I'll
Argentinian.
cut. We'll cut up. Um, he's Argentinian. That's great. Having another flag represented is brilliant for the grid. But I just hope they give him the time because it'd just be a waste for doing if he's pushed aside and then the second choice is pushed aside then, and it's a constant sort of cycle.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't he on loan from Williams?
No, they bought him out.
Yeah, I can't remember if they did. Because my thinking is if they because it was reported pre-season how much Alpine had paid to get him out. If you're paying that much for a driver, it was more he was more inevitable to get in, but also he's more inevitable to just keep his seat purely off of the amount they've paid him.
Well, yeah. He must come with some sort of financial backing, does he?
Yeah, I think he does. I can't. I think he bought a sponsor with him to Williams last year. I'm trying to think, but it's either that or he's backed by like the Argentinian government.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that would make sense as to why they've taken the risk on him.
But yeah, so that was really the major bit of news which everyone won't shut up about this week,
Yep.
and everyone's had a comment about. So let's look back at Miami. As much as we hate it, it wasn't a bad weekend.
We got mugged off. I
But it has had a 16-year extension.
Yeah, I mean, 16 years seems a little bit wild considering we've got like tracks like Spa, which are like one on, one off. Got tracks like Zandvoort that are
But yeah,
leaving.
I was about to say we literally spoke about Zandvoort last week, literally not being around after next year.
So
But now
16
they've gone
years.
for
I was
2041.
I was disappointed to see that, to be honest.
I wouldn't have minded if they had said like, "Oh, we've signed it for 5 years with like an option to extend in the future."
Yeah.
Instead of that, but they've just gone right. Yeah, we're going to keep this year for 16 years. The likelihood is they're probably not going to change it that much
I don't think
because
there's room to.
yeah, like structurally, I don't think they'll be able to because with a street circuit like Miami and where it is like geographically, you're not dealing with a circuit owner. You're dealing with like a council or like you have to speak to the actual Florida government. So yeah, I can't see many changes being made. But also going from this weekend, it wasn't terrible, but it wasn't.
It was a good race, I thought.
It was a
It,
very the actual race, the big race on Sunday was very backwards. All the drama happened at the start, and then it just sort of faded away.
yeah, I mean the race was kind of it was already been broke by like lap 25.
But what a great advert for sprint races!
So yeah,
It was mental. So let's go back through that sprint race. So the people who finished, well, really the big talking about point we can talk about from the sprint was Charles Leclerc's crash
yes.
before the grid. Ferrari sending him out on intermediate.
It's just I said he was going to
They
have a brilliant weekend as well.
Ferrari are getting worse and worse by the weekend, and it's painful.
We might have a push to
Oh
pass
yeah,
pod curse at the moment.
100%. Anyone who we say is going to have a good weekend usually ends up doing like horrifically bad the next weekend.
Yeah.
Max Verstappen finished outside the points for the first time since 2016.
That's mental.
A bit of a weird incident. Nothing to really blame Max for. It was just a Red Bull traffic light didn't work.
Yeah.
Speaking on that incident, Kimi Antonelli got sprint pole.
That was a. I want to say it was a surprise, but I suppose it's an inevitability. It was going to happen.
He looked very quick throughout like all three sessions. I just didn't feel like he'd actually be able to like deliver on the last lap. Because
Yeah.
you know what like Oscar's like, what Lando's like, what Max is like. When it comes to Q3, they can be like awful in Q1, awful in Q2. It gets to Q3 and they've put on pole by half a tenth, or like
It,
half
it,
a.
it's a shame he didn't quite have the race pace to live with everyone else, but
No,
it's still an achievement.
he was un. I wouldn't say he was unlucky. It was his first lap, first turn instant with Piastri. Yeah, that didn't really help him. And people were like, oh, well, he's been crashed into. I think it was more a case of just Oscar literally went, well, I'm going to win the World Championship, so here's my elbow.
Yeah,
Try to get around her.
it's fair.
And look, Antonelli's nowhere near a finished product, and he's very much still raw. He's very much like Oscar last year and in like Oscar's early years, where his race management is quite horrific. But in terms of like raw pace and just pure talent, you can clearly see he's going to be something big in the future.
Yeah, he's going to get there, isn't he?
Oh yeah, 100%. Lando Norris getting a bit lucky with the sprint win.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's what he needed, and I thought I thought that. Well, actually, I think he might have won the Sunday race if he didn't have that little tap with Max. I think that threw him off
He
his
learned how to
games.
overtake.
Yeah, I think it threw him off his game. After that incident, but
Um,
it fell into his lap the sprint. But at least he took advantage.
oh yeah, 100%. He had to be in that position anyway to like capitalize on it, but it was very much very lucky. But one of the things I did want to talk about from the sprint was I'm getting more and more annoyed with F1 with leaving penalties until after the race, to the point where when the qualifying for the main race was on, we were getting told about penalties for the sprint.
Yeah, I understand that there's like checks and it's got to be stringent and they got to make sure they've done it right. But it's a bit like VAR in football.
Yeah,
It takes away from the initial moment or the result when you're
like
kind of like it's going to become a normality where a result finishes and you're like, right, we'll give it 3 hours because race control are going to have a look at that and things might change.
well, yeah, Alex got P4, didn't he? And he went to like the media pen after the race, and it was one of the people from Sky was interviewing, and she was like, "Oh yeah, by the way, do you know you're getting investigated?" And Alex was like, "What?" And he was like, "Yeah, safety car infringement. You're driving too slow. You're probably going to get a penalty." And Alex was like, "Ah, well, I didn't know that."
Yeah,
It's like it's got to the point where even the drivers don't know, and it just takes it's I like you said with VAR, when in football when someone scores now, you're almost too scared to celebrate.
yeah,
But and now it's like the minute there's a race with chaos or there's like a late red flag or a late safety car, you're like checking everything to make sure your driver hasn't gone too slowly, your driver hasn't done this, done that. And honest, it's just tiring at the end of the day.
yeah. I agree. It makes the product harder to watch because it's just not as organic as it should be.
So let's go to qualifying then for the main race. Your goat.
Yeah,
What a lap.
it was. It was some
Um,
lap.
Hamilton knocked out in Q2. Gabby Bortoletto go through to Q2, and I thought he was the second coming of Jesus Christ.
I told you, he's one to watch. He's one to watch.
Um, Ocon through to Q3. Albon and Sainz had a really good P6 and P7. Piastri weirdly looked off the pace in qualifying.
Where did he finish?
He qualified fourth, but he
Hmm.
was he was only a tenth and like a tenth and a 1.7 tenths off pole. So
Such fine margins. That's like half a corner. It's like stepping
it
on throttle a bit
was
too early.
there was a tenth, 1.8 tenths covered the top five
It's,
with
ri-
three different constructors and a
it's
rookie.
ridiculous. It's so good, but it's so tight.
Oh, it's usually with qualifying, you can. I've said this before in a previous episode. You can afford to miss qualifying in previous seasons. I don't. This season, you can't. It's
No,
so good.
yeah, it is. It stepped everything up as well. I think because even like the hype into the races is bigger because of how good the qualifying's been.
100%. Like you look at that, and like I remember when, if you go back in years, you would have like qualifying would be close, but you'd never have three different constructors with five different cars separated by literally 1.7, like pretty much just about two tenths.
It's true. It's the closest it's ever been.
100%. So let's move into the race. I can't think of anything notable happened except for Lando Norris refusing to overtake everything.
Yeah, and then well, it was that move was definitely not Max's fault. It was no one's fault. It was just a typical racing incident. But I think because of Lando's angle, he didn't quite see that Max lost the back end.
Max Verstappen, I think, finds racing Lando Norris enjoyably. Like,
Oh yeah, because he's such a wind-up merchant.
oh yeah, no, because he knows like he's got him in his pocket.
Yeah, I know that's yeah, and I think it's gonna stay that way. Last year was like between them. It started off as a chess match, and then it became a formality, and now it's like taking candy from a baby.
He's You don't want to say it, but he is like bullying him.
Literally, yeah. He knows exactly what to do to wind him up.
Piastri, another win. His third in a row.
Third in a row, 4 in 6 races.
The last driver to win 4 out of 6 races for McLaren was Mika Hakkinen.
Right. What, in 99?
I
98?
think so. So, yeah, Piastri is looking very strong indeed for becoming
I'm
that
telling
number
you,
one.
2 more weekends, if he's anything like this, then it's his to lose. Like I'm not going to say it's his to lose yet, because it's still quite close up the top.
Yeah, we are only like a quarter of the way through.
But they've got to be so careful now, Lando and Max. They've got to really, really keep an eye out, because this could slip away. It would not take much now for it to slip away for them.
Before we move into our driver gradings, I sent you a certain TikTok
Yes, you did.
about, and I'm seeing more and more of these, of people saying that Lando Norris is being like wrongly treated by McLaren because he's built the team up and he's been there for all these years, and now Oscar is like winning, pretty much just doing what Lando should be, and people are like, "Oh, Lando deserves it because he's been here all this time," and now McLaren are treating him wrong.
I think certain fans of a certain show treat this sport like a soap opera.
Oh,
This is
it's horrific.
this is the problem. It is a sport. They are all there to win. Lando Norris isn't taking it personally that Oscar Piastri is faster than him at certain racetracks. He's accepting that he's faster than him, and he'll take a second place. He doesn't go back to the garage and start shouting at Andrea Stella, going, "You made my car slower. You're taking everything I work for." It
But
doesn't work like
he's
that.
winning races.
It just does not work like that. And the fact that so many people agree with these sort of comments, it's crazy.
I saw when it was like I can't remember what it was now. It was like Lando has been there for so long. Oscar should just let him win the WDC just because of how long he's been there and all the effort he's put into his team. And then all the ones underneath are like McLaren betrayal. How can they do this to Lando?
Yeah, F1 is famous for that they take pity on you, so they let you in.
Yeah,
That happens a lot.
that's how
Crazy.
everyone. That's how there was like 4-time Max Verstappen, 7-time Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah, they actually just like the ones above are just like, oh yeah, you know what, right? It'd be good for the storyline if he wins it this year, so we'll let him win it because it works exactly like that.
Right, let's go into driver gradings. So your top 10 are P10, Yuki Tsunoda, then Carlos Sainz, Lewis Hamilton, Charles Leclerc, Kimi Antonelli, Alex Albon, Max Verstappen, Jorge Russell, Lando Norris, and Oscar hates Lando Norris Piastri.
Yeah.
So let's do it as a weekend on a whole. So starting at P10, we have Yuki Tsunoda, who in the sprint qualified 18th, in the sprint finished 6th, in qualified 10th, and in the race finished 10th. I am going to go with a 6 out of 10. No, we don't
We're
do
changing
that.
it from letters.
No, we do that. I do this every week.
But saying
'cause-
that, we're not going to change it because we've done it. But I feel like numbers would make more sense.
Okay, we can do numbers if you'd like to.
Do you reckon?
We can do.
All right.
There's
Okay.
been a regulation change.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll give him a 6 out of 10.
Um. Clearly, he's not fully dialed in yet. Which
Oh, he's doing better than arguably Lawson would have done.
not even arguably. I think he is doing better than what Lawson would be doing. But to be fair, he saved his weekend because that could have gone after the P18. It could have been downhill from there.
And don't get me wrong, he got very lucky in the sprint that everyone like got penalties and crashed out the race.
Yeah, but he still got points on the board.
Yeah, you still have to be there.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
And like Q3, it's pretty much what Red Bull would have expected of him. They're not going to really want much more as long as he's in the same session. It's
I'll give him a 6.5.
you've always got to one up me, haven't you?
Yeah.
P9 Carlos Sainz. So in the sprint qualified 15th but DNF'd. because he did that horrific lockup and just didn't do a lap. In the sprint, finished in. He didn't finish because he got a puncture. Qualified in P6 and finished P9. I'm going to go with a 5 out of 10.
I'm going to go with a 5 as well. I think that's fair.
If
Because
he'd,
it
if
was a
he'd
bit of a horror weekend, but then
if
like quali saved it.
yeah, in the sprint, if he hadn't had that incident, he probably would have finished like P4, P5.
Yeah.
But he just tagged the wall and destroyed that rear wheel of his. It's he came after the race and was like saying he'd lost like trust and confidence in the team.
Did he?
Yeah, it was because of, I can't remember what it was. I think it was him and Albon didn't like change positions or whatever, and he was like, "Oh, that's not how I race. I've lost confidence or whatever."
Bold thing to say.
Very bold. Also, his dad's apparently running for FIA president.
I was literally just about to say that.
I would be there for that.
I'm just saying, I said this to my housemate. I said, surely that's a conflict of interest.
Well, funny that he actually came out. I read it on the train home. He said like there will be no contrast. Was it
On conflict.
conflict? Yeah, he said he's like there will be no conflict. So,
Yeah, but of course he's going to say that.
but also if you're the president of the FIA, you can't really do that much to influence it, can you?
No, but I'm just saying, I don't know. I mean, I'd like it. It would make sense. Former racer, very good racer, very well experienced, been there, done it, got the t-shirt. I like it. I'm just saying, I'm not sure if having a son on the grid is necessarily brilliant.
He seems very like authoritative as well.
Yeah, he does.
What I
He's that
wouldn't
guy.
mind it. To be fair, if he came in as, say, if he does come in as president of the FA, and then if he like delegates a role to like someone to be like FIA F1 manager or something. So say if he just covers every FIA, but then he appoints someone specifically to cover everyone, so and there is guarantee of no conflict of interest. Then I think
Yeah.
people will get more on board with that. P8 Lewis Hamilton. I'm gonna give him a 10 out of 10.
What, for
Purely
slaying the engineers,
purely for his radio messages alone.
having tea
That-
breaks and such.
How have you been broken by Ferrari's strategy and Ferrari's incompetence 6 races into your career after they pay you 50 million quid?
I think it's easily done when it's Ferrari. It's painful.
He was just so like, you can like, we've seen Charles snap, but like a lot of the time Charles can keep it under control and like he can be relaxed with it. But Lewis just the safety was firmly off and he was just going all guns blazing.
And I can't blame him, to be fair. I see what he's saying about Charles letting him past.
They need to just write off this year.
Yeah.
But don't, because I've seen they're on about bringing upgrades for the European stint now. Just leave them in the factory. Just get 60-day money back guarantee. Qualified P7 in the sprint, finished 3rd in the sprint after saying his car will not turn.
Yeah.
Qualified 12th and then finished 8th. Um,
Honestly, it's not that bad.
no, for where the Ferrari is, I'd say a 6.
I think a 6 is fair.
Because like the P12 in qualifying, it's not going out in Q1, but also it's not ideal.
No, it's far from ideal, but then he gained four positions in the race.
And he got on the podium in the sprint.
Yeah, and he's been finishing around that P8 to P6 mark anyway. That's kind of where he's at.
Yeah, I don't think we can give it more than a 6, but a 6
No.
is, I think, fair. P7, Charles Leclerc. In the sprint, he qualified 6th. Didn't finish because he crashed on the way to the grid. Qualified 8th and finished 7th. I am going with a 5 out of 10 for Charles Leclerc.
I'm going with a 4.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Why?
Well, he should be crashing on the way to the grid. I know. Obviously the tyres and such, but still.
You shouldn't be driving like a chav in that weather.
Yeah, exactly. Yob.
There's no
Bit
need to go,
yob.
no need to go flat out around it. Like fair enough, it's
Um,
flat out in the dry, but
and it's just, to be fair, it seems a bit harsh because I gave Lewis a 6. But equally, Lewis put it on the podium in a sprint.
yeah, and Charles just looked weirdly off the pace.
Yeah, he looked well off it. And I don't think there's much excuse for it. The Ferrari's not brilliant, but surely he knows this and he's knows that car inside out by now. What is it? Why he can't extract more out of it?
Or is that just how quick the Ferrari is?
Nah, because the best drivers find a way, and
Yeah.
I regard him as one of the best drivers. So
Oh yeah, 100%.
I'm a bit disappointed from this weekend. So I think I'm gonna stick with my guns and say a 4.
P6, Kimi Antonelli.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go
Where did he
with an
qualify?
pole and then third,
Right,
and
I
then
knew about the pole,
then
obviously.
finished in seventh and sixth. I'm gonna go with an 8.5 out of 10.
I'll go with an 8.
Because realistically, in the sprint, he is a decent Red Bull pit stop from being on the podium.
Yeah,
And you know, in the race, the Mercedes just it. I think Antonelli, like I said earlier, his race management just isn't quite up to scratch at the moment. And but also finishing in P6 is more than I think acceptable for like where that Mercedes is in the hands of Kimi.
yeah. We've discussed this before that P6 is where he should be, and that's where he's putting it. So you can't really grumble at that. And he's gone the extra mile, more than the extra mile, and he's put it on the top step. I think a lot of positive signs. It's a shame that he couldn't kind of linger up there a bit longer, but also, as you said, I think he's just naturally stunted by that car's performance and being a rookie. So I think an 8 is fair.
P5, Alexander Albon.
Good weekend.
Qualified eighth, was going to finish fourth in the sprint, but got dropped down because of a safety car infringement. And then qualified seventh, finished fifth. It's a 9 out of 10 for me.
It's a really good drive.
Because it would 100% be a 10 out of 10, but the safety car infringement is his fault at the end of the day.
Yeah. What was he going too fast?
Too slow.
Too slow.
Yeah, I think it was because. Oh no, it would have. No, Albon would. Sainz wouldn't have been in the race by that point, so I don't really know why he was driving so slow. But yeah, look, if he finishes P4 in the sprint, then P5 in the race, that's probably as good as a weekend as Williams will ever hope for.
Yeah.
But he's arguably been one of, if not the driver of the year so far, I think.
Oh, I wouldn't go with the. But he's been a highlight. He's
Yeah,
definitely having a good year,
he's having his best year, 100%.
and he needed this result because, if I'm right in saying, the last two, he's been towards either lower end of the points or just
Yeah,
out.
he's been like ninth, eighth,
Yeah.
ninth, 11th.
Whereas like he started Australia, absolutely rapid up there, and now he's back up there. So he's proved he could do it. It's a really good weekend. Really strong.
E4, Max Verstappen qualified fourth in sprint. In the sprint, finished 17th. Qualified on pole, finished fourth. I will go with a 7 out of 10.
It's not a great weekend from him, I'll be honest.
No, um, he just didn't seem to, like you said, the best drivers extract the best out of the car, and we usually see that with Max, but he just did not seem to be able to get the Red Bull in the right rhythm, except for that one lap in Q3.
No, and I think we predicted that he'd go all right as well last week.
Do not say we, you.
Nah, we both did. I swear we did. We
You
said,
predicted him. You predicted him to get sprint pole and win the sprint.
well,
P3, George Russell looked really off it before the race.
miles
Like
off it.
qualified fifth in the sprint, finished fourth, and then qualified fifth, and then finished third. I'm gonna go with I don't want to give a 7.5 out of 10.
I'm gonna one up you again. I'll go for an 8, just because.
I was on the edge of 7.5 and 8.
Just because I think getting a podium's not all bad.
And I think if he had done another lap in sprint qualifying, he probably would have been on pole.
Yeah.
Judging by what Antonelli did. So, yeah, I think it's more of a case of what if.
Yeah.
P2, Lando Norris. Now, this could divide some opinions.
Right, okay.
P3 in the sprint, won the sprint race, qualified second, finished second.
It's not a bad weekend. It's really not a bad weekend.
No. I'm going to go with the... Oh, I don't know. An 8?
We've stolen what I was going to say.
I think he easily could have won that race. He would just seemed very tentative to make moves, which isn't the end of the world considering how early we are into the season, and he's still picking up vital points to keep himself within the title fight. It's just he looked very much like almost worried and anxious to make a move just in case he was going to make contact or just in case he was going to get forced off the road.
Drives with his heart too much, I think. That's the problem.
Yeah, and he's very much he seems to be very much in his head.
He can't.
In that disco ball helmet.
Cool helmet. I like that helmet. He can't switch off, can he?
No.
Some of the best are famous for once they put the helmet on, they become a different person and they can focus on the job. I feel like he's never going to be that type of person, which isn't always the worst thing. He's just going to have to find ways around it. And like I said earlier, the incident with Max in the race wouldn't have helped matters because straight away he was on the defensive, and post race was saying about how it's so hard to overtake Max Verstappen because what was it? You either you either get past him or he crashes into you or something.
Yeah, Norris has always said that. He's like, you either jump out of his way or you get put in the wall.
Which
he's not wrong.
No, I was going to say history tells you that is probably true, but surely you know this by now then.
Yeah, surely you would have learned from last year that.
And also, this incident wasn't actually Max's fault. It was no one's fault.
Also, if you look at it, Piastri now in the past 2 races has overtaken Max with relative ease and with relatively just saying, I'm not going to let you by, get out my way.
Yeah, and it's a confidence thing as well. It is. I think Lando's got massive confidence issues, and that all plays into it, and that's probably why he's not doing the ballsy moves. He's thinking about everything, whereas sometimes all you've got to do is show a wheel.
So P1 Oscar Piastri.
I don't think we didn't rate him, did we? Did we rate him?
I did. I give him an 8.
Oh yeah, so did I. Sorry.
Sprint qualifying P2, sprint finished second, sprint qualifying 4th, race 1st. I'm gonna go for a 9 out of 10.
It's a good weekend.
He should have won the sprint, realistically. And perhaps. if he does, he's walking away with maximum points.
I don't think he's going to care.
No.
I think 4 out of 6 is so impressive in this season, in how competitive this season is. It's so impressive. I'm fed up of glazing him.
I remember going into races last year and I'd predict before the race. I'm like, do you know what? I can feel an Oscar Piastri win you. And then somewhere throughout the race, something would go wrong for him. He'd cook his tyres or he'd make a mistake. This year, I'm going into each race weekend and I'm like, I cannot see Oscar not being easily second.
I mean, I can't see him finishing off the podium many times this season now.
Oh no.
And if he doesn't, he's right there in the championship, whatever happens.
So we're at now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 races in. Australia, he obviously made that mistake, probably would have finished second. China, he won. Japan got stuck in 3rd when no one could overtake. Bahrain, he won. Saudi he won. Miami he's now won.
It's close. If you discount Australia, where he made a mistake in very tough conditions, so you can let him off, then that's close to a perfect start to a season.
He is also now 16 points ahead of Lando, which is at least a 2 race buffer of finishing second.
Yeah, which is stuff to consider because
Yeah, it's huge to have this early on.
if he kind of keeps it sunny side up and he's not crashing or he's not making big mistakes, then for the next like 6 rounds he could kind of coast in the natural sort of McLaren finish, which is going to be like in the podium, and he'd still probably be championship leader.
So let's go. Did you give him a rating? I give
I
him a 9.
didn't. I it's about that. If he won the sprint, I'd have given him a 10.
Yeah, 100%. Who's your biggest winner from the weekend?
My biggest winner. Oh, I'm gonna go with Piastri. I know it's boring, but I think it is.
I'm going to go with no driver. I'm going to go with the Lego cars
Right, yeah.
on the
I can't
formation
believe
lap.
we've not mentioned these. I
They,
can't believe it's taken this long.
all it took, this cost cap, there's different regulations, and there's different, DRS. We used to have ERS, different engines, different aerodynamics, and all it took was 4 Lego cars, which can only go 20 kilometers an hour, and we went 4 wide down the back straight.
Crazy.
Bring it back every weekend. That is the best driver parade I've ever seen.
I loved it. I thought it was funny.
Why are they getting on the back of a truck every weekend? Let them drive around in Lego cars.
Just how long would they have taken to build?
Apparently they're 400,000 pieces each, and I think they said they took about 96 days to build each car. And then they crashed them within like half a lap.
That's heartbreaking, isn't it? Like if you're one of the ones that was been building those.
Well, Nico Hulkenberg nearly knocked out Gabby Bortoletto because he was stood up and Bortoletto like slammed on the brakes.
Yeah.
Biggest loser for this weekend?
Ferrari strategists.
Yeah, I was going to say either Ferrari or Lawson, but Lawson's not really proven me
Poor
wrong.
Lawson. Leave him alone. He's already dead.
Oh, he's awful, isn't he? Well, I think that pretty much covers everything.
I think it does. I mean,
That's,
that was pretty easy.
that was a pretty good 42-minute episode. So I hope you have enjoyed this. It's more of just a general roundup episode this week rather than a review. So we hope you have enjoyed. Sorry it's been a bit late, but Alpine were busy having a mental breakdown, so we decided to let them cool off a bit.
Had to take him to the naughty corner.
But yes, we hope you have enjoyed. If you were listening on Spotify, don't forget to rate us 5 stars and drop some follow. It hugely helps. If you're listening on YouTube, drop us a like and a subscribe. More on the Spotify because YouTube is now becoming a more popular thing. But also follow us on TikTok and on our socials. I have been Max.
I've been Ruth.
And this has been the Push to Pass F1 podcast.